And then I realized there is no excuse. You may have to do it a little bit different.
It's time for Company Profiles with your host, Paul Chase.
I want to take a minute to thank our heroes. As a realtor, I understand the importance of finding the perfect property for our everyday heroes. That's why I'm committed to helping first responders, military personnel, healthcare professionals, and teachers save money on their real estate transactions. I believe in giving back to those who serve our community, and that's why I offer special discounts and services to these heroes. Whether you're looking to buy or sell a home or invest, I'm here to guide you through the process, ensuring you get the great. Whether you're looking to buy or sell or invest, I'm here to guide you through the process, ensuring you get the best deal possible. My goal is to make sure the real estate process is as seamless as possible for our heroes so they can focus on what truly matters, serving our community. If you're a first responder, military, healthcare professional, or teacher, let me help you save money on our next real estate transaction. Contact me today by reaching out to pa-heroes.com. All righty, this is Company Profiles with Paul Chase, and I have the pleasure this morning of talking with Rich Pavlik from Blind Bean Coffee Roasters. Good morning, Rich.
Good morning, Mr. Chase. How are you?
I am awesome. It's Monday. Doesn't get any better than this. Monday sets the tone for the whole rest of the week. Rich, I have been inspired by your story. Just simply, Blind Bean Coffee Roasters got its name because you are, for the most part, blind. And I am inspired by that, and I think a lot of other people would love to hear your story. So rather than me tell your story and get it all botched up, would you tell us your story?
All right. Again, my name is Rich Pavlik. I'm in my mid-50s. Back in 1988, I was a young man, and I thought I had the world by the strings. I was in excavating. I drove. I was engaged to be married. Went to the eye doctor and got the news that I'm going to be totally blind within a year. Really hard for a young man to accept, but I had to face a harsh reality that my life was going to change. In that time frame, I was engaged. I gave my girlfriend an opportunity to say she didn't want to marry me. She still married me. Her dad pretty much told me, when you marry a Lancaster County farm girl, it's like joining the draft. Her father told me what my career was going to be because I was a lost 20-year-old. So I went into the cleaning business with him. I was his first employee. Fast forward lots of years later, my wife and I owned the cleaning business. We're 35 years old. I've learned to manage people. I've learned to clean toilets. I've learned to clean carpets, strip and wax floors. Now that I'm pretty much totally blind, I don't do any of that unless my wife makes me do it at home. And then I do it with a smile, and she points out anything I miss like a good wife would do. So how it kind of changed was, after 35 years of managing people, I figured I'm soon going to be to the retirement age. And my wife had highly suggested that I have a hobby if I'm even considering retiring, because that would keep my life a little more pleasant with her, because she didn't want to be grumpy with me for driving her nuts. So one of the things we did for many years of being in the cleaning industry, we drank that black water called coffee. And if anybody's drinking coffee for lots of years, you've had really, really, really good coffee, and you've had other stuff that you have to choke down because it's that bad, but you still drink it. So I found a company that made really good coffee. I purchased from him for several years. And all of a sudden, right around the pandemic, his price started going up, which I wasn't happy about, but I understood. What I didn't understand was the package size went down at the same time. So I said to him, I said, hey, I can handle your price going up, or I can handle your packaging going down, but I can't handle both. He said, well, he said, that's no longer up to me. I sold the company. Would you be interested in learning how to roast coffee? So I thought, gee, instead of spending a few bucks for a bag of coffee, I'm going to go out and spend several thousand and buy a coffee roasting machine. In my mind, that made a whole lot of sense. So instead of asking my wife permission, I chose to ask for forgiveness, and we started roasting coffee. And I had asked my wife to pick out the types of coffee she wanted. So she did some research and she started reading the profiles of coffee, and she picked several different types of coffee and suggested I blend them certain ways. And boy, she is way, way smarter than me because it tasted great. So our personal hobby started being to the point where our friends wanted our coffee. We were giving more coffee away than we were drinking. And my wife said, you know, Rich, we ought to start this as a business. And I said, honey, I think that would be a great idea for you to do. So we mentioned it to our kids. Our kids are real wise guys. So they came up with Blind Bean Roasters, which is our mascot is actually a coffee bean with sunglasses and a white cane carrying a cup of coffee. I personally have never seen the logo since I'm blind, but I can envision in my mind, and it is just so neat. So hence, Blind Bean Coffee was born. My wife is the owner. I am the general manager. I get to do all the fun, hard work. My wife, I give all the credit to because she's the smart one, and she's the one who designed the coffee. So we are now in our 4th year of doing this. It's currently January of 2024, and we're looking forward to a fantastic year.
That is great. Now, one of the things that, we've known each other for, I don't know, a couple of years now, but one of the things that I really like and appreciate about you is your whole attitude towards being blind, and it seems to be with life. I know a lot of people, when presented with a challenge, they default to no, or why, or how, or we can't. Your default position seems to be why not. You don't see yourself as a victim. You take the hand that you've been dealt and you make it excel. What hobbies do you do, just as an example? Because I'm impressed by that.
Okay. What? So if you heard that voice talking in the background, that was my talking thermometer telling us how warm it is in the house. So everyday tasks like reading your thermostat on the wall, I can't see to do so. My world talks to me. So speaking of hobbies, one of the things I do is whitewater kayaking. I have a fellow friend of mine who is a retired naval person who served in the Navy. He's my guide. He kayaks in front of me with a speaker on the back of his life jacket. I follow the sound. Behind me is one of my friends who's a pastor who follows me behind and gives me verbal cues so I know if I need to go river left or river right. So yes, just to repeat, whitewater kayaking for the blind. My wife has always said to me, just because you're blind, that's no excuse not to take out the trash. But honey, I can't. She said, oh, so you can't take the lid off the trash? Well, yeah, I can do that. She said, you can't feel around for the string of the bag and pull it tight? Well, yeah, I can do that. She said, you can't lift the bag out of the trash? Well, yeah, I can do that. Oh, sounds like you can take out the trash to me. And then I realized there is no excuse. You may have to do it a little bit different. So just like my talking thermometer told me what temperature it is here in my kitchen, I have to listen to it versus read it. In the coffee business, to see how much coffee goes into the machine, I can't read the scale. The scale talks to me. So my wife and I go camping. I set up our camper by feel. And after you bang your head 3 or 4 times on something, you realize that when my hands are here, my head can't be there, you bang your head. It's a lot of trial and error. And we've taught our children can't is not in our vocabulary. I can, I just may need to go around the obstacle, not through the obstacle.
I think that is fabulous. Now, something else that I'm really also inspired by is you work with a group to help other handicapped folks not just get jobs, but start their businesses, start a micro business. Tell me
Okay.
about that.
The name of that company is called the Hope Served. And let me do a small correction. People affected by disabilities.
Okay, my apologies.
I am not handicapped. I cannot see. Now, what I can see is I can see an opportunity. I can see success. I cannot see obstacles. So Hope Served is a friend of mine, has several children that she's adopted from multiple countries. She woke up one day and realized that I'm not going to be around forever. And I want to give my children that are affected by disabilities opportunities so when I'm not here, they can have a successful life. So we're buying a building. We're setting up what we call micro enterprises, one of which is coffee. So they're going to have a coffee initiative. And what I'm doing is I'm going to be teaching people, which I say out of sight, which means they cannot see, how to bag coffee, how to sell coffee, how to raise funds, how to run a business, and all that can be done without sight. Or if you're in a wheelchair, or if you have some mental challenges or deficiencies, or all kinds of other things that may limit you in some ways. But if we set up micro businesses and teach them how to get social capital, soft skills, hard skills, they then can move on to work in the secular public, which is fantastic. And we look at everything with compassion, not driven by dollars. And by the way, we do pay a living wage. So it's not like we're asking them to volunteer for free. We're actually paying them more than they could get in the free market. That way they have self-worth, pride, and oh, by the way, if you hire somebody that is affected by disabilities, there's a really high chance that they're going to always show up for work because they take so much pride in what they do. They don't feel somebody owes them a job like some of the American public does. And that's not meant to be negative. That's just a difference.
Wow, that is powerful. And I am very anxious to see and watch the growth of Hope Served, as well as Blind Bean Coffee Roasters. So let's focus on the coffee just a little bit. What makes a good cup of coffee? I mean, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I know that there's people out there.
Well, we can fix that. Give us enough time and we'll fix you being a coffee drinker. So, all right, back to the question. What makes a good cup of coffee? Number one, you got to have a cup. One thing you don't want to use is styrofoam. Styrofoam makes even bad coffee taste worse. It makes good coffee taste bad. So you start with a cup, paper cup, glass cup, pottery cup. Some people say stainless steel cup, other people say not a stainless steel cup. So one of the things that happens in the history of coffee, coffee is a very, very old item that was actually invented in Ethiopia. And they had some of their animals out grazing and they ate this vegetation, and they noticed that the animals got all kinds of energy. Well, after a little bit of research on their part, many, many, many moons ago, they discovered coffee. Coffee is still harvested by hand in a lot of countries of this world. It's generally harvested at high altitudes in third world countries, all by manual labor. They still dry it, ferment it, and handle it the same way they have for hundreds of years because it is manually labor intensive. So I actually have the easy part of the job called roasting. I get the raw product, and what we do is it comes in very large, heavy bags. So being blind, I usually have to have somebody with sight to help me identify that I put the right type of bean in the right type of barrel so I know what I'm dealing with. And then what we do is we take those beans and we roast them for a little bit of time. A difference between the light roast, medium roast, and dark roast is only about 15 seconds per roast. So it's very, very, very precise. So I get to use a lot of my senses in roasting coffee. I get to use my brain because I have to do a lot of thinking. I get to use my ears because it pops in the sounds of similar to popcorn popping. I get to use my nose to smell it. And I get to count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, because the difference between the different roasts are like 15 seconds. And then I turn the machine off, which gets very, very hot, several hundred degrees, for just a few short minutes. And then it comes out of the machine cool. Then I get to use my hands, and I get to use a funnel and pour it into a bag and weigh it and listen to the audible sound of the scale telling me how much is in the bag. That's the hard work. The fun work is grinding the coffee and getting to smell the fresh aromas of coffee. Paul, I believe you don't like coffee, but I believe you probably like the smell of it roast or brewing, don't you?
I do, and I've actually carried your coffee in the back of my car between the time I pick it up and the time I give it away. And for a few days, my car smells really good.
So there's something called aroma. And so just to remind you, we're saying what makes a cup of coffee good. I didn't go off track. So number one, Paul just said the smell. The smell is incredible. And then what you do is you grind the coffee, and then the smell gets enhanced again. And then there's lots of different ways to make a good cup of coffee. You can do a pour over, you can do a French press, you can do a drip coffee maker, you can do a percolator, an espresso. So that all depends on how you like your coffee made. But what makes a real good cup of coffee is fresh. The time between when it's roasted and the time that you drink it in your cup, the shorter the time, the better the coffee. So one of the things we do very well is we roast our coffee custom. So when Paul says, hey, I need a bag of this or a bag of that, or 10 bags of this or 10 bags of that, that's when we go out and we roast it. Now our business is growing, so we're roasting several times a week. So it's extremely fresh coffee. And the taste is in the cup. We believe we have the best coffee in Lancaster County, and we let you be the judge. So I think the best way to drink coffee is black. My wife thinks the best way to drink coffee is on a day off of work with 1 sugar and a touch of cream. So I'm not going to dispute what's the best way to drink it. I just think the best way to drink it is to drink it and to enjoy it. And take that 2 minutes while you're taking a sip of coffee and just relax. Let the cares of the world race by you while you enjoy your fresh tasting cup of coffee.
There you go. It's like somebody told me the best, what makes the best wine, or the best wines are the ones that you like and that you enjoy the most.
That's correct. And we have like 11 different varieties that we can make. So yes, whatever you enjoy the best is the best tasting cup of coffee to you.
Now, Rich, somebody says, okay, they're hooked, they want to try your coffee. What stores do they find you in?
Well, the easiest way to find us is go online to blindbeanroasters.com. And then what I do is it's great to have, I love to have a conversation with somebody to say, tell me, how do you drink your coffee? What makes a good cup of coffee to you? And then I listen. And then I say, all right, so what are you looking for in the coffee? I'm just looking for some black coffee to keep me awake. So does that mean you're looking for a diner coffee that has this, or are you looking for specialty coffee that tastes like that? And then I have a conversation, and then I make a recommendation after I ask a whole bunch of questions, because there is such a large variety. And I usually find that most people who don't know what they like, we start with a medium roast and a medium body coffee. And then they say, oh, that's usually exactly what they want. Or, oh, I like it a little, that was a little too strong. Oh, well, then you would like our breakfast blend. Oh, I want something a little bit stronger. Oh, you would like our bold blend. And it's a great conversation starter. And most of us business people like to say, hey, why don't we get together for a cup of coffee at Joe's Cafe or whatever the cafe happens to be? And that's really a nice conversation starter.
So you're acting not just as a coffee roaster or a coffee salesperson, you're out there really serving as a consultant. Excuse
Correct.
me, to help people identify the blend and the roast that they most enjoy.
Yes. And what was really interesting was I had met somebody recently that's had my coffee for years and said, Rich, when I go home, I cannot get my coffee to taste like yours. Well, he happens to be a longtime friend. So we went over to his house this weekend and we helped him solve his problem to why his coffee didn't taste the same. And we found out that there's lots of processes after I give you the coffee for things to go sideways. He had a particular type of grinder that ground some of it super fine, and it left some whole beans even after he got done grinding. So he didn't maximize his brewing process because of a poor grinder. So we made the suggestion on this is the type of grinder to get, which is a burr grinder, and that will solve his problems. And he got his coffee to right where he wanted to get it in just a little bit of consulting time. And a lot of that can be done over the phone, because the whole goal is to get people to have a wonderful experience, A, with coffee, B, with me. And I love talking to people, and you learn so much from people just by having a conversation.
Wow, isn't that the truth? So remind me again, what is that website?
It is Blind Bean Roasters.
Blind Bean
Blind
Roasters.
as in no sight, bean as in coffee bean. Roasters is what I do to make the coffee taste good.
Got it.
Blindbeanroasters.com.
Rich, hey, I appreciate your time and thank you so much for talking with me today.
Well, Paul, thank you for interviewing me today. I most appreciate it. And have a great day.
Thanks, you too.